A midlife crisis is more than just a cultural stereotype. It's a real psychological struggle that can surface between the ages of 40 and 60. Often triggered by aging, loss, or unmet expectations, it can actually lead individuals to question their identity, make impulsive choices, or abruptly abandon long term commitments. While not officially classified yet as a mental illness, the emotional and relational fallout is very real, especially for the spouses and families left behind. This podcast gives voice to those living through the aftermath, exposing the hidden pain and seeking accountability, healing, and understanding. Thank you for joining us today on MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. The stories and events discussed in this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or professional advice. Any names, locations, or identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, or real events are purely coincidental. The information presented on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with a qualified expert regarding any decisions related to your specific situation. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the podcast creators. Hey, Bomb Squad! Thank you for joining me today on MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. This is episode 46 in season 1, and just know I'm going to take off on vacation for a few weeks. I will be dropping our newest episodes beginning September 20th. And that is going to be the launch of our second season of MLC Bomb Drop. So I know there's a lot of you out there with great stories, and I want to make sure we get to all of you, each and every one. In our second season, more truth about midlife crisis, more jaw-dropping guest stories, deeper insight into the chaos that shatters our families. And while I'm away, just revisit past episodes. Every replay reveals something new. Share your favorite ones with a friend who may need to hear the stories. And then get ready, because when I return, season 2 is going to blow the lid off what you thought you knew about midlife crisis. So, thank you for making season 1 everything that it has been. I just really appreciate all of you guys. And I'm glad we can all be there for each other. And I look forward to sharing today's episode with you on frontotemporal dementia. Stay tuned for today's episode. Hey, Bomb Squad. I got a call early this morning from a friend that said, hey, you've got to watch the new Diane Sawyer special featuring Bruce Willis and his wife, Emma Hemming Willis, who just wrote a book called The Unexpected Journey. In this interview with Diane Sawyer, they talk about what Bruce Willis was diagnosed with. He was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. Again, that's frontotemporal dementia, FTD, and it is a neurological condition that mimics midlife crisis in its earliest stages. So we are going to talk about that today. When your spouse suddenly changes, when they grow cold, impulsive, reckless, or unrecognizable, you may assume, yeah, this is a midlife crisis. You may not even have heard of midlife crisis in the beginning, but you're here today, and so you're obviously familiar with it. But what if it's not a midlife crisis? What if what looks like a sudden bomb drop is actually a disease of the brain? Today, we're diving into frontotemporal dementia, FTD, the very real neurological condition that can mimic midlife crisis in its earliest stages. Seriously, guys, this is one of the most important conversations we've had on this show because awareness can change everything. So here we go. All right, well, here's why people confuse the two. Both MLC and FTD can involve sudden personality change, emotional withdrawal or coldness, reckless, impulsive choices, a lack of empathy toward the spouse and family, and sometimes even denial, where the person insists nothing is wrong. As a matter of fact, even in the interview with Diane Sawyer, Bruce Willis's wife, Emma, says he didn't realize anything was wrong. He didn't know why they were going to doctors. He just didn't see it from their perspective. Does that sound familiar, you guys? For those of us left behind by a midlife crisis spouse, it can feel eerily similar, but the root cause is different. So they say midlife crisis is psychological, an emotional storm fueled by aging, mortality, and trauma. Frontotemporal dementia, on the other hand, is neurological. Brain cells in the frontal and temporal lobes literally begin to die. And that difference is what matters. Dr. Bruce Miller said, when you see a dramatic change in someone's personality or behavior in mid or late life, you should assume that the brain is changing. And I believe he put the years sort of like 40 to 65. So keep that in mind. And that's Dr. Bruce Miller of UCSF, one of the world's leading FTD experts. He studied how what he calls the social brain can be disrupted by this illness, leading to lost empathy, compulsive behavior, or risky decisions that don't make sense to the family as we sit by and watch all this unfold. And this isn't abstract. It's happening in real life to one of the most beloved actors of our time, Bruce Willis of the Die Hard movies. In 2022, Bruce's family announced that he was stepping away from acting due to aphasia, a language disorder. A year later, in 2023, doctors confirmed the cause was frontotemporal dementia, a heartbreaking diagnosis. His wife, Emma Hemming Willis, has spoken about what that moment of diagnosis felt like. And she had said on the Diane Sawyer special, to leave the doctor's office with nothing, just nothing, with a diagnosis that she couldn't even pronounce. She didn't understand what it was, and she was so panicked. But that panic, that helplessness is what so many caregivers describe. You think it's marriage problems, you think it's stress, you think it's overwork, you think all kinds of things, but then you realize something deeper is going on. And yet, even amid heartbreak, Emma has reminded the world of something beautiful. And she said, even though he's going through this, her husband is still very much there. She talks about his laugh, his smile, his twinkle in the eye that still comes through, moments of love that remind her and us that even as dementia reshapes a life, humanity remains. But the thing for us here is, how do we tell these things apart? How do we know whether somebody has midlife crisis or they are having this FTD situation? So the progression, MLC, it runs its course within 3 to 10 years, or it just stabilizes. FTD, on the other hand, gets progressively worse. And that just breaks our hearts. Another difference in language, if somebody has trouble speaking or understanding words, that's a big symptom of FTD. That is not a symptom of MLC. Compulsions, one of the signs or symptoms of FTD is eating the same food over and over, pacing, and repetitive behaviors. That is a symptom of FTD, not MLC. There's loss of daily function, inability to plan, manage money, or carry out simple tasks. That's another FTD symptom, not necessarily MLC. And then there's, one really definitive thing, and I think this is what happened in Bruce Willis's case, having an MRI or PET scan, that can show atrophy in the brain's frontal or temporal lobes. So if you see these red flags, don't stop at therapy. Push for neurology and testing for answers. Push for that MRI scan or PET scan. Hugely important. Again, I'll repeat those symptoms. of FTD. Language, trouble speaking and not being able to put their words together, eating the same food over and over, pacing or repetitive behaviors, loss of daily function like inability to plan, inability to manage their money, or carry out simple tasks. If you see those symptoms in your spouse or partner, get to the doctors and do an MRI or PET scan. And what if you assumed it was midlife crisis and maybe even blamed your spouse for their selfishness and what's been going on, and then you find out it's dementia? Well, if you find this out, just know you didn't realize it. It's not your fault. It's not your responsibility. As a matter of fact, a lot of doctors miss FTD at first. They often confuse it with depression, midlife crisis, bipolar disorder, or other personality issues. So stop blaming yourself and just get on it. Start documenting. Keep a journal of behaviors, especially the speech changes and unusual habits. And Emma noticed that in her interview. Definitely go watch the interview with Diane Sawyer, and you'll see what I mean. She talks about how he slowly started just changing some of his behaviors. Get medical evaluations. Definitely a neurology referral, neuropsychological testing, and brain imaging are essential. And if you discover that your spouse or partner has FTD, you got to start planning. You got to start planning legal, financial, and caregiving decisions because the decline happens relatively quickly. I think within 3 to 5 years, it can get really progressively worse. And so you want to plan ahead and start to build a support team because you can't just do it all by yourself. At this time, there's really no cure for FTD, but there are medications that can help manage symptoms. Medications like the SSRIs, they can reduce impulsivity, they can reduce compulsive behaviors and agitation. There's trazodone, which is used for mood or irritability, and there's antipsychotics that help with severe aggression or psychosis. Although they say those have to be used with caution. And I think Bruce Willis was going through this, the speech therapy and occupational therapy to help preserve their communication and independence. And just know, these things do not stop the disease, but they can improve quality of life for the patient and for your family. And if you're on this road and you just know you don't have to do it alone, just like this podcast, there are a ton of resources out there for you. There's the AFTD, the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration. The website is theaftd.org, and it can direct you to support groups, caregiver guides, and trial information. There's the UCSF, that's University of California in San Francisco, UCSF Memory and Aging Center. And that website is memory.ucsf.edu. Again, memory.ucsf.edu. And they offer cutting edge research and clinical care. And that's where this doctor works out of and has done so much for FTD. There's also the Alzheimer's Association. They have resources for FTD as well. And they have a 24/7 helpline, which is 1-800-272-3900. And then, of course, there is Emma Hemming Willis's book. It's coming up I think it comes out in September, titled The Unexpected Journey. And it's going to be a great roadmap for families because she has lived it. She is living it now. And she really wants to help others learn from what she's gone through. So you guys, what looks like midlife crisis may not be midlife crisis. It may be a brain disease. And while MLC may stabilize, FTD only progresses, but love, presence, and community still matter. And whether it's MLC or whether it's FTD, we are all in the same boat. And may we hold both of those truths, the grief of what's lost and gratitude for what remains. This has been MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. Share this episode with someone who needs it. And remember, you are stronger than you know. Please. And if you're not sure if your spouse or partner is in MLC, you can check out the 2-minute little quiz. It's free. It's at midlife crisis marriageadvocate.com. And, you know, we're sorry you're going through this, but just know we have a lot of resources out there. I think every day there's just more and more. And, I want to remind you guys, Bruce Willis, of all people, he did not go looking for this. He didn't ask for this disease, just like nobody asked for cancer or things that are simply out of our control. Um, if if you're dealing with a spouse that is suffering from a midlife crisis, please know there is nothing you could have done to prevent this. It was going to happen. It is not a choice. It says nothing about you. Your spouse has an affliction, just like cancer. It is completely out of their control. Sometimes some are able to deal with it a little better than others, and sometimes they're not. So please don't beat yourself up over it. Take care of yourself. Remember that if you're not in midlife crisis, if you have your wits about you and you're doing okay, embrace that and go forward and stay strong. And be thankful that you are not afflicted with some brain situation that's taking over your mind and your personality, and spinning you completely out of control. So, as bad as it might be to be married to somebody in MLC, just be so thankful that it's not you and you're able to just go forward and still make the best of your life. Because really, that's a huge thing. So I really hope you guys realize that it is not your responsibility. You didn't cause it, and they're going through something that is completely out of their control, whether it's FTD, whether it's MLC, whether it is, bipolar or schizophrenia or, NPD or BPD, any of those things. They are completely out of their control, just as if they were to be diagnosed with a terminal illness or a lifelong illness. So just remember that. And thanks for joining us today. Stay strong, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining us today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And be sure to check out thewifeexpert.com. That's our friend Lori McDermott over there, with amazing videos as well. Be sure to check out Kenda Roots, super helpful information at midlife crisis marriageadvocate.com, where you will find a 2-minute quiz that can help you determine whether you or someone you know or love is having a midlife crisis. So be sure to check those out and catch up on your past episodes. And I will be talking to you in about 3 more weeks when we launch our 2nd season. And again, to be a guest, just reach out. You can reach out to me in a myriad of ways. So on Facebook, Instagram, or just email me direct at mlcbombdrop@gmail.com. And anyway, hope you're doing well. Rise up, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, guys. Bye.